Welcome back to another exciting YouTube video. What we're going to talk about today is how to buy a guitar from a guitar store. Now, I'm as guilty as everybody when it comes to ordering guitars because generally the guitar stores do not have what I want. And I'm sure I'm not the only one in the world, or there would not be a whole lot of online people selling guitars. Unfortunately, the guitar stores never have the selection that I'm looking for. And if I'm looking for something in particular, then I can just say forget about that. They're just simply not going to have it. They may have guitars like it or guitars by the same manufacturer, but they may not have the guitar I want. This guitar, for instance, I ended up having to order this one. I do have a place that I order from pretty much 95% of my stuff, because my local mega guitar store and the city I just moved from, their local mega guitar store, their selection is horrible, and they carry a bunch of bottom line guitars. And they do have a lot of top line guitars, but only from one or two manufacturers. And out of the millions of guitars out there made, I don't want a guitar from one of those two manufacturers. And, and I know I'm going to probably take some flack for this because all this started with Fender and Gibson. But by all means, Fender and Gibson is not the end all be all. And I promise you, I own and I play guitars that are much better than Fenders and Gibsons. Take this guitar, for example, my Ibanez. I did a review on this. I was not sure about this guitar. I ordered it, took a shot in the dark. Threw a dart, hit, this guitar came in. This has quickly become one of my favorite guitars. I absolutely love this guitar. Everything about this guitar is amazing. So I feel that I got fortunate because so many guitars that I have ordered, I've had to send back. Order it, send it back, order it, send it back. That's the bad thing about ordering guitars. You don't know what you're getting until it shows up at the door. Especially if it's one you can't find in a guitar store and you don't get a chance to play it, because you have no idea how that guitar feels. Feel of a guitar is everything. When you're getting a guitar, believe it or not, the least important thing of the guitar is the looks. Now granted, looks are nice. You do want to like the look of the guitar you're playing. For the most part, when you're on stage, everybody wants a cool guitar. For the simple reason, cool guitars are cool. But that is not the most important thing in the world. I have played absolutely beautiful guitars and beautifully expensive guitars. And even though they were great guitars, they didn't suit me, because everything comes down to how it suits you. And when you're in the guitar store and you're walking around and you're looking at the 9 million Fenders, the 9 million Gibsons, probably see a smattering of the lower end Ibanezes. A lot of times you don't see the upper end Ibanez guitars. You'll probably see some PRSs, although most guitar stores now are carrying more lower end PRSs than higher end PRSs. And you might see a mixed bag of a couple of other things. So you go into the store, you have no idea what you want. This is what you got to check. First thing is, how good is your guitar store? That is critically important. Chances are, if you are going to a smaller guitar store, not the guitar mega store, not that store, I have played so many guitars at my local guitar mega store that are junk. A, because the setups are terrible on them. They may have been set up from the factory, but after they have hung on that wall at the top of the ceiling, where guess what rises to the top? Heat. After all that heat is set up there and really dried everything out on that guitar very, very well, all of a sudden that setup's not so good anymore. Well, guess what? You cannot get a feel for the guitar unless the guitar is set up well. A lot of times the smaller shops will keep their guitars set up. If you're in a bigger store and you have a guitar in particular that you're looking at and it plays terrible, how do you know it plays terrible? A, it's going to be out of tune. Tune the guitar. Sometimes it's not so easy. I was at my guitar mega store and I was playing, actually they had a EVH in there, one of the specials. Grabbed it, picked it up, strummed it, completely trashed out of tune. Everything out of tune. Went into another guitar, another high-end guitar, and started checking it out, playing it. and beating around on it, and it was on the top, of course, up there where all the heat is. And the first thing I noticed is the frets. The heat will actually shrink the neck of the guitar a little bit, and it'll cause the frets to hang out on the side. If I'm not mistaken, things like roasted maple necks will not do that because they've already been roasted and dried completely, so they won't shrink. But a lot of straight maple necks and stuff, they will. And that is and isn't the Guitar Megastore's fault. It is their fault because they hang the guitars so high, and in the winter when they run the heat sits up there and it just completely dries out the necks and stuff. It's not their fault because the necks are going to dry over time regardless, and that is going to be an issue. So that also helps it makes it very hard to find out if the guitar works good for you, because it's hard to play around on it with these frets just nicking the shit out of your fingers. So when you are going to get a guitar, my advice is first thing, good setup. Make sure your action is nominal. You don't want the strings so far off the neck that when you actually fret it, it goes sharp. You don't want that. You want something with good, fairly low, decent action. Average is around 3/64. Obviously, you don't have a ruler with you, so you're not going to sit there and measure it. But if you've played enough guitars, you know what good action is. If you're new to it, you shouldn't have to press down on them. You should just be able to gently, my dog. You should be able to gently and fret it without much. Bro, really? What are you doing? What do you do? Go away. Go away. There you go. No. I didn't. Go. Wookie. Dude, go. Go over there. Go over there. Go. Oh my God. Dude, go. Sit. Lay down. Fine. Lay right there. Don't move. Back to what I was saying. First point, or however you want to look at it. Good setup is a necessity to be able to determine if the guitar works for you well. If the guitar is not set up, if they are a good guitar store, they should take the time to at least get the action to where the action is playable. And it's not, either too high or fretting out all over the place. Second thing is the frets. It's really hard, like I said, to determine how well a guitar plays when you have frets just ripping into your hands. So if the guitar has a lot of frets sticking out on it, if you think that's a guitar you like and you want to buy it, they should fix that for free. That is not something you should not have to pay for to have those frets dressed. It is a bit of work, but you know what? When you're dropping $2,500 on a quality guitar, I don't give a shit. Fix it for free. If you're dropping $500 on a guitar, you may have to argue a little bit to try to get that point across. All right, so we've gotten through those 2 points. Let's say the action's pretty good. The frets aren't sticking out. What's the next thing we're looking for? The neck. How does the neck feel in your hand? Does the neck fit your hand? Like I said in a previous video, when I first started playing, I liked big old fat baseball necks. As I've gotten older, I started playing thinner necks. Don't know why, styles change. Actually, when I first got this guitar, because I've been playing the EVHs and stuff so long, I've had Les Pauls and blah, 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 that when I got this, it was a little bit of a transition because the neck was thin, but now I absolutely love this neck. Which is really cool because it opens me up to a lot more guitars, because there's a lot of guitars with thin necks that I never really thought I would like too much. So how does the neck feel in your hand? When you grab the neck, is it sitting too deep in your hand? Is it too thick? Is it not thick enough? You have different shapes of necks, things that you need to take a good look at. You have a C shape, which is a fairly common neck, fairly comfortable. You have a U shape. U-shapes were popular back in the 80s. A lot of guitars used them for really fast stuff. I believe the Fender Heavy Metals, I had one. I had the hot pink one with the Kaler tremolo. Dude, it was seriously cool. It had the U-shaped neck on it, and that was a very strange neck because they call it a U-shape. I guess they should call it a fat U because you can see the shape of the neck here. But just the way it falls off on the shoulders of the neck to that flat back end, it was just hard for me to kind of get a feel for that. And it was a very wide neck this way, which is cool because, a lot of clean note work in there because you when you got really skinny necks, you know, your fingers kind of hit the other necks as you're moving around. I mean, the other strings as you're moving around. It makes a lot of noise. So you've got to find a neck that fits your hand appropriately. Not one that's too thin, not one that's too fat, the one that's just right. You got to find that warm porridge in your guitar neck. This is one of the most important things in the world, is the neck on the guitar. Doesn't matter how, the guitar could sound like $1 million. It may look like $1 million, but if the neck plays like shit, the guitar is shit. So, and just because it's shit for you does not mean it's going to be shit for the next guy, who may have really big hands and that fat neck feels great to him, to where in comparison, your little hands like mine, the thinner neck actually feels great to me. Another thing you got to check out is fretboard radius. What do I mean by radius? I mean how much curvature that fretboard has. This is also a very important thing. The big thing right now is you have necks that start off at one radius and end up at another radius. It's called compound radius. Compound radiuses are cool. The nice thing about them is when you're down here, very easy to fret off chords because the neck is much rounder. A lot of them go from like, they'll go from 12 to 16, 12 to 14. Sirs are 12 to 14. The EVH, and I think a lot of the new Fenders that are running compound radiuses are running, and the Jacksons, because they're all made by the same company, even though EVH is its own brand in a separate factory. And trust me, you will never confuse an EVH guitar with a Jackson or a Fender guitar. Never happen. But I believe they're running 12 to 16 compound radiuses. My PV Wolfgangs have 15 degree radiuses. I love 15 degree. It's a straight radius. The guitar plays exactly the same down here as it does up here. I like that. And this one is actually a 15.75, which I really like too. When I get over a 16, when you get them to a 17, which John Petrucci, one of his guitars, is a 17, man, I can feel that flatness. Now, the flatter the radius, the more shreddability the guitar has. That's the point of the flat radius. Easy for, easy to get the good bends. They don't fret out. You can hold them, you can hold them forever. So, and the flatter the radius, generally the better the sustain the guitar is going to have on this part, through the neck. So, radius makes a big deal. If you're not going to be shredding, the flatter radiuses aren't that big a deal to you. You can get down into the Telecasters, which I believe run 9 or 10 degree radiuses, which are very round. When you get up into the shreddy guitars, they're always going to have flatter radiuses, or they're going to be compounded down here and be really flat up at the top, which is what you want. And we're going to talk about shreddy guitars because I'm a metal guy and I like shred. So that's always the way I'm going to lean. So radius, very, very important. Another thing you need to look for on a guitar, this is also very important, the heel. This part of the guitar right here. One thing about Fenders and the Charvels and stuff that I just cannot stand is that big, fat, square block heel. I do not like it. I do not like it. I do not like it. Said Sam I Am. I do not like it with green eggs and ham. I do not like it at all. You're up here welling on the top and you've got that massive block backing your hand up and pulling your fingers away, when ultimately you want your fingers up here. You want a lot of room around to get over, and the fatter that block, the less we have. I hate that square block. Do not like it. The Eddie Van Halen's, they have a carved block. As you can tell on the back of my Ibanez, it also has a carved block, very thin. Of course, this is a very thin guitar, which is one of the most beautiful aspects of this guitar, is how great it plays and sounds, and for it to be such a thin guitar. But it's got a very comfortable hill on the back of it. I am a little partial to bolt-ons, simply because if something goes wrong when you break a neck, you can buy a new one and bolt that dude on. If you have a neck through, you can buy a new one too. But it's a tremendous amount of work changing that neck out. And the last thing you want to do is try to glue your neck back together. So bolt-ons, 2 thumbs up. Next thing we want to look at, you need to look at your pickup configuration. What are you going to be playing? Since I'm a metal guy, I like my humbuckers because they're a little fatter, a little warmer. Double coils, I guess, are a little meatier, a little meatier sounding. I do like my double coils, especially in the front for soloing, because you get let's crank up a little more nastiness on this. I like the creamier sound of the double coils in the front. just love that overall tone. And pickups aren't as important to me when initially buying the guitar because those are things that are easily changed out. The feel of the guitar is so much more important. So with that being said, you got to figure out what kind of configuration you want on the pickups because you don't want to buy a double single and then decide that you want to put a double up here. Now they do make single size pickups with 2 coils in it. Joe Satriani runs one in his JS Ibanez series up at the neck. I do like, and they do sound good, don't get me wrong. And if that's the route I had to go, that's the route I would go. The center pickup for me, I can go with or without it. I actually do like it in this guitar. I think it's got a really good sound to it. I'm normally not a big fan of single coils, but son of a bitch if this one doesn't sound good. This is the True Velvet by Ibanez. And it came in this guitar, and actually what got me on this pickup was Nita Strauss. Not that I know Nita Strauss. I would like to know Nita Strauss for many other reasons. But I watched an interview with her on her guitar, and she was talking about the True Velvet and how much she likes it. And when she went to DiMarzio and they made her pickups, which is probably what's going in here, like I said in my other video, probably going to put the Pandemoniums in here. She was talking about how great of a pickup that center was. And I have to agree, this center pickup is fantastic. And on this channel with this split here, it just sounds so good. And then to the center, a little more rounded, not quite as thinned out because we don't have the treble off this side, but that's a very important thing to me. I do like having at least 2 double coils. One thing that is a bummer to me, and I did it in the review of this guitar, is I can't run these 2 together. That is not cool for me. I do like having the sound where I can run these 2 together, like on a Gibson, on a Les Paul or ES335, because I think that's one of the best sounds in the world. But I can at one point rewire this and do kind of like the Guthrie Govan wiring setup on it. It is very complicated. When I had my Sur guitar, we tried that. And man, that just turned into a freaking disaster. We had, Jesus, I don't even know what the hell it was. All I know is that like you'd go to the middle position and this one coil would be firing off from the front pickup. It was a disaster. We screwed everything up and we ended up having to set it back to stock. And normally I'm pretty good at that shit, but that time, man, I don't know what happened. I just completely screwed that guitar up on that one. But I got it all worked out and everything. And so pickup configuration, very important. Another thing you want to look at is your trim system. Do you want a trim system? Do you want a hardtail? Do you want a hardtail that is low, or do you want one with a raised bridge like on a Les Paul? Personally, I do not like raised bridges because of my playing style. I have a very hard time adjusting to them. I like things with sunken in trim systems. I like them where they're lowered into the guitar, gets the strings close to the body because of my pivot point and the way I play with my arm. When I'm up here trilling, this actually is this lets me know where I'm at, and that is sitting on the body. When I got that Les Paul with that big bridge, I'm up here and it throws me out of whack. So I like keeping my hand low. So this is important to me. And I use that in a lot of songs, you know. And I'm all about that. Nice thing about the Ibanez, especially on the Ibanez Prestige, is they come with the low pro trim system, which honestly I almost bought one. This is actually a premium. Watch the video. I almost bought a Prestige because I love the low pro trim system. It was almost enough to get me to spend the extra $700 for that guitar. I settled on this one, of course, because it has other appointments, which I think are better than what comes on the Prestige. And this guitar is phenomenal. All right, another thing you want to look at. This is another important thing. Tuning machines. I love tuning machines that are locking, even one that has a lock on it. So much easier. You break a string, unlock the tuning machine, pull it through, pull it tight, lock it, clip it, couple winds, tune, you're done. Even with this trim system on this guitar, another reason why I bought this. This was an important feature for me. It is so easy to tune this guitar with this trim system. And like on my EVHs, now I've been playing those forever. I'll talk about that more later, but the detuna is a very important feature for me because if we do some songs in drop D, I don't have to worry about anything. I just flip that down, boom, I'm in drop D. Another feature I like. And that's what it comes down to is, does the guitar have the features that you like? Stainless steel frets. Very important to me is stainless steel frets. I love the way they feel. I love the way they play. So after you determine what all the features are important to you and you find a guitar that you think works for you, now you have to play the guitar. This is a very key thing for me. There's nothing worse than ordering a guitar that you have never played and then you get it and you hate it. When you get the guitar, now we've all been there, gone to the guitar store, found an amazing guitar, hooked it up to one of their crappy amps, and the guitar sounds terrible. Or you grab your amazing guitar, you hook it up to one of their amps, and it sounds amazing. Then you get it home, and the guitar sounds terrible. One thing that I do when I am buying a guitar is I will drag my rig, because I know what this sounds like. I will take this to the guitar store to play that guitar, because that way I'm not playing through a foreign amp, because I play it through a Boogie and it sounds brilliant, and then I get it home and it sounds terrible. And I don't have that many issues, of course, with the Kemper, because I've got a profile of probably every great amp in the world in here. But if your main amp is, let's say you're playing a Marshall JVM, and then you grab a guitar and you're down at the guitar store and you're welling on a Mesa Boogie and it sounds fantastic. You bring it home to your JVM, totally different vibe with those two amps. Now all of a sudden it sounds like shit. Best thing to do, cabs they got. Well, I don't know, the Guitar Megastore, they got crappy cabs. And if you take your great amp through crappy cab, you have crappy sound, So take your rig if you have to, because if you're getting ready to drop, especially if it's an expensive guitar and you're $1,500 or over, hell, I'll say $1,000 or over, take your rig in there. Hook that guitar up to your rig to make sure it sounds like what you think it should sound like. Playing your new guitar through a different rig you're unfamiliar with, never going to work, because when you get it home, it's always going to sound different. That is so vital. Another thing I do when I'm buying a guitar is I check out the frets. Now, I'm not talking about the size of the frets. Let's say we get the guitar and everything's rounded and smooth. That's fantastic. Just because all that's rounded and smooth does not make sure those frets are even. Now, there's a big misnomer running around that guitars with trim systems do not sustain as well as guitars with fixed bridges. I call bullshit on that. My EVH, now granted I do have a brass block on the back of it, my 1996 pre-patent Wolfgang, the heralded greatest guitar in the world. That thing is a freaking tank, and it has played thousands of shows, beat to hell and back, and it plays like a dream. I will put the sustain on that guitar against any guitar in this world, hands down. The action is set fantastic, and it's a great guitar. It's not the hardtail that makes great sustain like everybody believes. It's the quality and the setup of the guitar. That's what gives you sustain. Case in point, when I go to a guitar store, Trace, when you go to a guitar store, how do you check the guitar out to see if the guitar plays well? Well, I play a few riffs like most normal people do, songs that you're familiar with, but I always play one solo in particular. And I know it seems like, for the love of God, I'm on this White Snake kick, and I'm not. It just happens to be what I'm jamming on right now. But what I do play is I play the solo to Is This Love. And if it, on a high gain amp, can hold those notes, then chances are the frets are set up pretty good. To give you an example of what I'm talking about, little White Snake, Is This Love. Tremolo, no brass block on this guitar. The solo. I don't want to hear guitars with trim systems don't sustain as well, because obviously that's a lie. And that's the song I use, because because that song has those very long held notes, and I want to see if that guitar can hold those notes and hold them cleanly too. Great solo. I love that solo. I want to see how the guitar reacts with the strings and how well it carries the distortion while I'm soloing. those are very important aspects to me of the guitar. Is it too muddy? Because I'm running a lot of gain, and these aren't my favorite pickups in the world, but they're obviously very good pickups. They're very articulate. Because like I said, I'm running a ton of gain, and it's still very, you can hear everything ringing in it. So they're not overtly muddy. So that's important to me too, because I may want to buy a guitar and not have to change out the pickups. I want a guitar, I may just want to buy one that has great pickups in it. And unfortunately, these are great pickups, just not great for me. 90% of the people in the world will not change the sound, so that's not an issue for them. So when you're buying your guitar, that is another very important thing to look at, is check out a couple of different spots on it and see how it sustains. How long does it hold that note out? Because if you're holding out really short notes, then you've got frets that are uneven, which means it's going to need a fret dressing. If you are, and you're buying a guitar and you grab you a note and it does this, and it just dies off, or has a very quick trail off, then your frets are uneven. And that's going to require the strings to come off, and those frets are going to have to be leveled. There again, if you're spending $1,000+ on that guitar, that's something they should do for free. It's not your fault it came from the factory that way. Actually, it's the factory's fault, and the factory should know better than to send out guitars that way, but unfortunately it does happen. I've got a video coming up, and we're going to talk about the absolute worst guitar I ever bought. So when you're going to buy your guitar, those are things you need to check out and see if the guitar works for you. Just because your buddy's playing a Les Paul, that does not mean that's a guitar for you. And a prime example before I wrap this up is when I was buying years ago, my, like I said, I have a 1996 pre-patent PV Wolfgang. When I was looking for a new guitar, that guitar wasn't even in my peripheral. I wasn't even thinking about that guitar. And I'd gone through the motion and played back then, BC Riches and all that stuff. And I come across a Wolfgang. And of course back then I was the Eddie Van Halen Wolfgang fan, but I'd never really gotten into his guitars too much, because I did play one of the Music Mans, and it wasn't my bag. It was a great guitar, and Lord, I'd love to own 50 of them now, but it wasn't for me. So I sat down, got it out, played it. God, I think I played it on an old PV amp. PV analog amp, and I had, analog amps have really high gain and stuff, so I had the gain clicked on, and I actually had a chorus built into it, kicked that on, and so I'm sitting there just riffing around on the guitar, and the more I played it, the more how good that guitar felt, and it just got to the point where that became my main guitar for years. And at one point I had 13 Eddie Van Halen Wolfgangs. Got a little addicted to them, and I still play one today. My 1996 pre-patent is one of my all-time favorite guitars, and that guitar suited everything I was looking for. Fantastic neck. The fretwork was it was superb. There was no dead spots in it. The neck was comfortable. The body was comfortable. Had the carved till. Had the trim system. Had the D-tuna, locking nuts. It had most everything that I was looking for in a guitar. Great fit and finish, and luckily the Van Halen guitars are good-looking guitars. So when you're buying a guitar, don't go in there and find that pretty guitar and think, man, that's the one I'm buying, because ultimately that's the wrong guitar. Check out everything I talked about. Best thing you can do is take your rig to the guitar store, play your sound through that guitar, and see how it stacks up. So those are the tips on how to buy a guitar from a guitar store. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope this helps you in your next guitar purchase. If you have any questions, drop it down in the comments section. If you have any comments, drop it down in the comments section. Please subscribe to my channel, and I've got some really good stuff coming up. But until then, as always, rock and roll.